Okay, thank you, everybody. This is wonderful to have all these people attending the commission. I want to welcome you all, every single one of you. Thank you for coming and showing interest in Flagstaff Heritage. So my name is Duffy Westheimer. I am the chair for right now of HPC. Today is August 19th. We are starting the meeting. We will start with, there's a notice of option to recess into executive session, which I don't
Chair,
think we're
could you do
doing.
the call to order and the time?
Okay. The call to order is at, I don't know, 4:05 on August 19th, 2026. So there is an option to recess into executive session, but I don't think we're going to do that. So we'll start with the roll call, please.
Duffy Westheimer,
Here.
Alec Overman,
Here.
Emily Dale is excused, Jesse Dominguez,
Present.
Alicia Hayes is excused, Jeannie Stevens,
Present.
Caitlin Stewart is excused.
And we have a quorum. Okay, cool. All right, would anyone like to read the land acknowledgement?
I can do it. The Heritage Preservation Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who forever know this place as home.
Thank you, Alec, Vice Chair. Now I'll read the Heritage Preservation Commission purpose. The purpose of the Heritage Preservation Commission is to protect and enhance the cultural, historical, and archaeological heritage of the city of Flagstaff by recognizing, preserving, enhancing, and perpetuating the use of those objects, structures, sites, and landscape features that represent distinctive elements of the city's cultural, political, architectural, and archaeological history. The council finds and intends that preservation of the city's heritage is in the interest of the health, economic prosperity, education, cultural enrichment, and general welfare of the public. The commission implements the city's general plan and is implemented pursuant to the provisions of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, as amended, the Certified Local Government Program, and Arizona State Statute, providing the standards and procedures for heritage preservation. And next we move on to the open call to the public. We do have one person, Kevin Peterson, come up, please.
Thank you. Okay, hi, my name's Kevin Peterson. I live at 418 East Birch Ave. And I'm here tonight to share my experience as the owner of an older home and my attempt to repair it and adapt it for my family. I bought the house on Birch in 2019. Excuse me. I was well aware that it was in a state of disrepair. In fact, the previous owner told me when he was happy to sell it before it fell down. That condition was also the reason I was able to afford a house so close to downtown. Like the owners before me, I knew I would need to modify the house to make it work for my family. Eventually, I hired an architect and we began looking at different options. At some point, he explained the project would fall under zoning code 10-30.30. Although the house is not on a historic register and is not located in a historic district, it is more than 50 years old. And because of that, the city determined the phase 1 cultural resource study would be required. I hired a consultant, paid thousands of dollars for that. The study was presented and approved by this commission about a year ago. And as my architect and eventually my structural engineer continued developing the plans that would meet the City of Flagstaff's building codes, they determined the majority of the house would need to be demolished, with the exception of the front porch. I submitted those plans to the city, and they were approved. That was not my original intention, but I understood the reasoning. And as time went on, I started thinking if I'm going to rebuild most of my house, I'd rather have a one-story house. My family intends to stay here well into old age, and I'd like to add a garage. So I brought this idea to the city, and I'm now being told that a phase 2 cultural resource study will be required. So I'm just here to ask you guys why. I've already paid thousands of dollars for a cultural resource study. The city has approved the partial demolition of my house. If the majority of the structure is going to be removed anyway, why should I be required to spend thousands more on another study? More importantly, how is this process benefiting the residents of Flagstaff? Uh, from my perspective, the code is being applied inconsistently. Some projects come before the commission while many others do not. And the burden falls particularly hard on individual homeowners who are trying to improve and maintain older properties. A large developer can absorb additional studies, delays, consultants, fees as a part of doing business. An individual homeowner often cannot. And for an average Flagstaff resident, another several thousands of dollars can be the difference between being able to repair a home and deciding that selling is the only practical option. That seems especially troubling in a city that's already facing an affordability crisis. If preservation is truly the goal, I would encourage the city to look at whether the current process is actually achieving that goal. Because from where I sit, the current system can create barriers for almost done. The very homeowners who are trying to remain in their homes, improve them, and preserve the character of their neighborhoods, while at the same time encouraging redevelopment. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Anyone else who's here? Would you like to speak? Quickly fill out a card and come forward? No? Okay. So we will be finished. We're now done with the open call to public, and we are to the approval of the minutes from July 15th, 2026 executive session. Does anyone have any changes or revisions, or do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 15th, 2026 executive session.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Any other comments, or can we vote? We'll move to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, it passes. So then we go to the minutes from the regular meeting. And anyone want to make any comments or anything, any changes? No? Jesse,
I'd like to move that the minutes be approved as written.
okay. Any other comments? No? All right, anyone might make a motion?
Second it.
We'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion passes. All right, now we open the public hearing. The first item, 7A, is from Our Lady of Guadalupe Convent Certificate of Appropriateness.
Right. Hello, Commission. Lauren Clementino, Heritage Preservation Officer. There is the applicant and other folks from Our Lady of Guadalupe are here to speak about their certificate. I'll do a quick overview and then let them present. And they also brought some literature for you that we left on the desk. All right, so this is a certificate of appropriateness application for the Our Lady of Guadalupe Convent building. The request here is to make improvements to the devotional niche on the exterior of the convent building. And here are a couple photos here. The one on the left is the inside, and then the one on the right is the exterior as it's attached to the convent building. And just our background, the applicability section from the code of when a certificate of appropriateness is applicable. And so this is appropriate when the proposed work alters a cultural resource, but does so in such a way that is compatible and would not, diminish, eliminate, or adversely affect the significance or integrity of the resource. And here are the criteria of approval for certificate of appropriateness. which I know, I don't think we need to go in exhaustive detail, as I know the commission is familiar and you read in the staff report in the packet, but I'm happy to answer any questions. So the project background here, so again, it's proposed improvements to the devotional niche on the west elevation facing Kendrick Street of the Our Lady of Guadalupe Convent building. So these would include resurfacing the existing plaster that's on the interior, as well as, oh, sounds like we have an echo. Okay. Resurfacing the plaster and painting the interior of the walls and adding new plaster and tile to the exterior west elevation wall of the convent building itself that's inside. It would not be changed in size, shape, or location, and no other improvements are proposed. Since the application was submitted and the information was published in the agenda and I wrote the staff report, the applicant has provided additional information that they are happy to answer questions about, and I've included here on this slide. So this is an updated tile installation method that their contractor has provided. And basically, the main thing here is that before, it would have been applied directly to the exterior stone, which is not considered a reversible change, but now this new process would be installed on a removable backing board that in the future could be removed. So changing that scope of work a little bit to allow for future reversibility. So removable backing board, so no tile, grout, et cetera, would go directly onto that exterior stone surface. And then they would be secured using industrial grade fasteners. And then some additional information on the board itself. So just to note, this is a difference from what you reviewed in your packet. And so a little more background, why are we here? The Our Lady of Guadalupe Church and convent buildings, just those two of the three on the parcel, are located within the landmark overlay zone. So this is our floating landmark overlay zone. We mostly just see projects that are in the downtown or the town site overlay, but we do have a landmark overlay with a lot of individual properties, and this is one of them. The church itself is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The convent building is not. However, both of them are within the Southside Historic District. And one other interesting note about this property and the convent building, when the ordinance was passed in 2019 that created the landmark overlay for the property, a restoration plan was required at that time for the convent building. And it was required to be established within 3 years. That has not yet been completed. So it is outstanding now by several years. And per the terms of the ordinance, the city cannot issue any permits for the convent building until the restoration plan is complete. However, as this project does not require a city permit, I did recommend that the commission approve the certificate of appropriateness anyways, but I am bringing up for your consideration that there is this outstanding issue with the convent not being, or the property not being in compliance with the ordinance, because that restoration plan is now several years out of compliance. And that is a next step before any other work that the city needs to issue a permit for can happen on the convent building. So overall evaluation of effects, there's, just to summarize what was in the staff report, as the overall design really isn't going to change here. There's no alterations, size, shape, location, no alterations in pattern or scale. It's going to continue with the existing devotional niche use and design intent. The alterations are going to be, primarily limited to the textures, materials, details, and colors that are, within the niche space. And because of the new scope of work information, this is now reversible. Prior it was an irreversible change. Painting or covering over brick and stone is considered irreversible and generally is not a historic preservation best practice, but with the new scope of work, that has been corrected. However, even in that case, and even covering it up temporarily, it's still very limited in the overall context of the entire building, and because it's already enclosed in that space, the general effect of the alterations here are fairly minimal. And again, because it's going to continue in the same use, the proposed textures, colors, materials, details are consistent with this use. And again, it is clearly differentiated from the rest of the building and self-contained in that space. And overall, staff recommendation is that it would not diminish, eliminate, or adversely affect the significance or integrity of the building as a resource, which is one of the criteria of approval. So staff recommendation is approval of the certificate of appropriateness. And the commission options are the commission can approve. The commission can approve the certificate with additional conditions related to the standards and guidelines applicable to the case. The commission could request additional information and continue to a future meeting, or the commission could deny the application. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll invite the applicant up here to present and answer questions about the project.
I spoke to Lauren, and I don't need to recuse myself. But I do want to make some comments. Is the applicant aware of the condition of the convent, the requirements? I mean, I'm sure it just fell
Yeah.
through the cracks.
They are aware, and there are some proposed changes that the diocese would like to make, and they are aware that they will not be able to move forward with any of those until the plan is in place. And those will be coming in under a separate certificate of appropriateness and a separate review of the restoration plan. And my suggestion was to include all of the scope of work for the changes they'd like to make, which at this time includes, I believe, lighting, fencing, window upgrades, changes, to include all of that, as well as their kind of 5 and 10-year plan in a restoration plan. So, you know, the work they're already budgeting and everything right now, and bring all of that forward at the same time as the certificate of appropriateness to the commission for review. So hopefully that will be coming
But
later
that would
date.
be a separate issue, correct?
Yes, it will be a separate issue.
I would like to give a little history of the niche, and I'm proud to say that I've climbed on top of it. I've been inside of it. I think I know every rock that's on there. But anyways, I think this is a great idea, and I'm proud to say that I'm glad that the church and the group is trying to preserve a piece of Mexican history. That niche means a lot to the families on Southside and people that grew up in Southside. The mill workers, anybody that's ever been to Our Lady of Guadalupe, how many wedding pictures have been in front of this little niche? I mean, I think one of them is mine. So with that said, I would like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the improvements.
Commissioner Dominguez, I think the applicant would like to speak and present. I know you're already ready in that.
I guess I'm just a little too excited.
But I'll welcome them up here to present what they'd like and answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of Flagstaff Heritage Preservation Commission. Thank you, Lauren Clementino, Heritage Preservation Officer, for your time, your guidance, and review of our proposal. We sincerely appreciate your recommendation to approve the certificate of appropriateness. My name is Lucia Morales, and I am representing the Guadalupanas of San Francisco de Asís Parish. The Guadalupanas, together with Our Lady of Guadalupe Centennial Committee, will provide leadership and project management for this proposal. Our community sponsors include Coconino County Supervisor Jeronimo Vasquez and Westar Raices. Historical and cultural background. I would like to begin with a brief history of the Guadalupanas and why this project is important to us. The tradition of the Guadalupanas traces its origins to the devotion of Our Lady of Guadalupe that began in Mexico in 1531, following the apparition of Virgin Mary to Juan Diego near Mexico City. As Mexican families migrated to the United States, they brought with them their Catholic faith, traditions, and devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. The Guadalupanas sitting with us today, wearing their traditional badges, represents the continuation of this religious and historical legacy in Flagstaff. Why are we proposing this project? The Guadalupanas seek to restore the historic devotional use of an existing exterior niche to the Laredo House. By installing a hand-painted ceramic tile image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, we are not proposing the construction of a new architectural feature. The niche already exists. Our proposal is to repair its deteriorated interior and restore it to its historic devotional use. The niche has served as a place for prayer, reflection, and devotion, and is closely associated with the adjacent Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel. We selected the image of Our Lady of Guadalupana because the chapel itself was built and dedicated in her honor. Significance of the devotional niche. Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel has served Flagstaff's Catholic community since 1926 and represents an important part of the history of Flagstaff's Southside and Hispanic community. The first Mass was held at the chapel and was celebrated on December 12, 1926, the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. This December 12th marks the chapel's 100-year anniversary. We hope to unveil the restored devotional niche as a tribute to the founding parishioners, their descendants, and today's parish community. The niche represents more than an architectural feature. It's a devotional use. It's connected to the cultural and religious history of the property and the people who worship here. Existing condition and repair. The interior of the niche is currently deteriorated. There is peeling, loose paint, cracking plaster, tile fragments, and a wood frame assembly is attached to the niche. Our proposal is to repair and stabilize only those areas necessary to provide a sound interior surface. CertaPro has been selected to perform the surface preparation and repair work. Their work will include removing loose materials, repairing damaged plaster and cracks, stabilizing deteriorated areas, and applying appropriate moisture-resistant materials and paint within the interior of the niche. No exterior Malapai stone will be altered as part of this project. The tile mural. The ceramic tile mural will not be directly applied to the interior of the niche. The contractor proposes to mount the tile mural on a separate exterior-rated backerboard assembly. The purpose of this approach is to minimize permanent alteration to the historic material and allow the mural assembly to be removed in the future if necessary. The thin-set waterproofing material, grout, and other materials required for the installation of the ceramic tile will be placed on an exterior-rated backerboard assembly. Our goal is straightforward: protect the historic fabric while restoring the devotional niche. Compatibility with the historic property. We believe this project is compatible with the historic character of the Laredo House. The devotional niche already exists. This is a reuse. The proposal uses an exterior architectural feature rather than adding a new structure. It does not alter the building's overall architectural form. It does not remove or alter the exterior Malapai stone. The visual change is confined to the interior of the existing niche. Most importantly, the project restores a devotional use historically associated with this space, rather than allowing the niche to remain vacant and continue to deteriorate. Funding and stewardship. The project is funded through a grant from Arizona Community Foundation and an endowment provided by a parishioner. The Guadalupanas have a long history of caring for Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel and will continue to with the devotional ditch in coordination with San Francisco de Asís Parish. Religious and community benefit. The devotional niche is primarily religious in purpose. The Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel is not currently open for weekly masses. Restoring the exterior devotional niche will provide parishioners and visitors with an accessible place for prayer, reflection, and devotion. This project also provides a broader community benefit. It preserves and interprets an important part of Flagstaff's cultural history, recognizes the contributions of the Hispanic families who established this Catholic community, and provides residents and visitors with a visible connection to the history of the property. In conclusion, we respectfully request the Commission's approval of the certificate of appropriateness. This proposal repairs and stabilizes an existing historical architectural feature, restores the niche's historical devotion, continues the visual change, confines the visual change to the interior of the existing niche. The mural will be mounted on a separate removal assembly designed to minimize the impact of the historic fabric and recognize the century-long cultural and Catholic religious history associated with Our Lady of Guadalupe and Flagstaff Southside community. Our goal is to respectfully preserve the historic character of the Laredo House while restoring a devotional niche that reflects the history and cultural heritage and Catholic religious tradition associated with Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel. On behalf of the Guadalupanas, I want to thank the Commission for your thoughtful consideration of this application, for your commitment to protecting Flagstaff historic resources. Johnny and I was supposed to give a historic perspective, but he has been delayed, and I'm not sure he's going to make it. But anyways, thank you very much, and thank you, Lauren, for your help and your guidance through this whole process. And thank the Guadalupanas and Jeronimo Vasquez for being here today and supporting us. Thank you. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
I have a question
Yes.
for you, and I'm just so happy you're all here because your church, it's still a church to me, is so important to Flagstaff history, and you have such a dynamic community. So thank you for caring about it so much, because I know you do, because I've been to your celebrations. And my question is sort of for Lauren also, and I understand the need for reversibility, but is the material behind what would be in you're replacing it with, is there enough there that it's worth putting a new material in front of it?
Board?
Yeah, is that really?
I recommended approval without that in the scope of work
Yeah.
because there were previous alterations inside. It looks like there was a window that's already been filled in, and there's additional grout with tile in it that's already been added. So I recommended approval with the original scope of work. But I mean, maybe this is still the easiest thing for their contractor, though.
Yes, it is. It will be easier for him because that's an unstable back niche. The wall of that is unstable, and his is recommendation based on the reversibility of that.
And so that's your preference.
Yes, that is our contractor's
Okay.
preference and his recommendation. He has been doing this for 41 years in the tile trade business, so he's highly recommended.
Okay.
So is Sorta Pro too.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure it's what you wanted, that it wasn't being required of you. I mean, so that's what I just wanted to check. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Dominguez, would you like to do a motion?
Now I'll go ahead and make that motion again. Thank you, by the way, for the presentation. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
I know
Thank you
there's
for
a
this
lot of
opportunity.
behind the scene work that has to be done and has been done by the Guadalupanas and Jeronimo and all the other people that are back there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
With that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the improvements to the devotional niche on the exterior of Our Lady of Guadalupe Convent building.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? No? Right. Let's vote. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. It passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving down to our next agenda item. This is a Historic Signs and Facades grant for the Carriage House at 503 North LaRue Street. And the property owners and applicants are here to talk about their project and answer any questions that you may have. This is a little bit of an interesting one. This house is listed in the North End District. The Carriage House has received a previous historic signs and facades grant for an earlier phase of this project. However, applicants and properties are eligible to reapply after 5 years. And as it's been over 5 years, they're eligible to apply. And we, of course, just our new fiscal year, we have plenty of grant funding available at this time to award a level 2 grant, which is the $20,000 matching grant. And to meet the $20,000 level 2, it does need to be a listed or eligible property, which of course it is, and it also needs to follow the Secretary of Interior standards, which the scope of work as proposed by the applicant would do. And so the request specifically for this next phase of the Carriage House is to remove and reconstruct the brick walls. Previously, the applicant had been hoping to be able to stabilize them, but they proved to be unfortunately far too deteriorated. So they are now proposing to remove and reconstruct them and follow best practices, using the historic bricks on the outside. Any replacement bricks would be on the interior, so it would still reflect as much original fabric as possible on the exterior. New foundation has already been installed in parts of the building, but they would need to put a new footing underneath where the brick walls are going. They would also like to reopen an original carriage door opening on the west side of the building that has previously been enclosed. So restore an original feature to the Carriage House. And with that, I will invite the applicant up here, but I've also got the grant application here with all the photos, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the grant or the project before I invite them up. If not, I will invite Amy up. Okay, whole packet is here if you'd like to. You need to flip through anything.
Hello, thank you, Commission, for giving us this opportunity. I'm Amy Horn and my husband Rod Horn. We're the homeowners. And this property is at 503 North LaRue. It's built in 1892, the house and the carriage house. And as Lauren mentioned, we started the restoration back in 2017 and spent 5 years working on the internal structure because the second story was very unstable. And so we did get all of that reconstructed and all of the permits, and then the permit expired and we just couldn't work on it anymore with other things going on with family. So decided to reactivate it, and too many of the bricks were compromised. And so it was recommended that we go ahead and take down all the bricks. And so we got the new permit renewed, and we are now about 2/3 of the way through removing all of the bricks, recycling, stacking, restoring all that we can, preserving all the bricks that we can. And we have found, well, we have the local concrete company, 4M, that's going to put in the footing. And we have a local masonry person who will restack the bricks. I think thankfully, we're not going to do that. And then, as Lauren mentioned, we're going to restore that original west side carriage house door the way it was. It used to be a full pass-through with both. So I'm sure Rod might have something to add.
Mostly that the original project involved an interior set of foundations. A structural steel frame went in, picked up the top of the building, put it back on, and did a lot of structural framing, preserving as much of the framing and stuff as we could of that building. And at this point, structurally, it's up, it's good. It just needs the bricks to come back up to the building, to the second floor.
So that this photo is the one before we started removing bricks, and you can just kind of briefly see down here, we have boards holding it up because so many of the lower bricks were compromised. The ground just kind of wicked up moisture, and so a lot of those lower bricks, we couldn't lift it and replace or anything.
When the city came in and went from dirt streets to paved streets, they paved them higher than the building. And because the dirt level came up, it caused the moisture to go into those bricks and freeze and deteriorate those low bricks.
And we've done our calculations and our square footage, and we do believe we have enough of the original bricks to do the exterior. And so the quotes we've been receiving on the bricks is to just cover the interior because it's a double white brick wall. So any questions?
I might note real quick.
Microphone.
Oh, might note real quick that there's very few carriage houses left in Flagstaff that look like carriage houses, and our property is numbered on LaRue Street, but it goes about 2/3 of the block down Elm Street. It's a southern 1/3 of about 6 different properties. They were cut up kind of strange. And we've preserved the hayloft door and things like that. All the structural openings will remain exactly the same. So I felt growing up in Flagstaff, it really preserves a piece of that kind of history from Flagstaff.
I'd just like to make a comment. You guys have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I've, as a little boy, I've walked by this place and I think those cracks were there way back when.
Yes.
So how you guys are doing it, you maybe need to write a book on how to restore old carriage houses, but thank you for doing that.
you.
It's really nice.
Thanks.
Ditto. I've been watching you work on this for years because it's one of my favorite houses and carriage houses. So thank you for taking such good care with it and sticking with the project because it's not easy. So thank you.
It feels like half of Flagstaff has been watching that project.
And when it was for sale before we bought it, half of Flagstaff walked through it.
Any other comments or anything? Does someone want to make a motion?
I just wanted to reiterate the beautiful work and just how refreshing and exciting it is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve a level 2 historic signs and facades grant application for the carriage house at 503 North LaRue Street to remove and reconstruct brick walls, pour a new foundation under the brick walls, and reopen the original carriage door opening on the west side of the building.
I second the motion.
Any other discussion? No, let's vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
So now we move on to item C, 407 West Tucson Avenue, Phase 2 Cultural Resource Study.
Yes, and the report preparer is here to give a presentation on the Phase 2 Cultural Resource Study and the findings. So I'll just give a quick intro and then pull up their slides for them. So this is the first time the commission has seen a phase 2 cultural resource study. This is a historic age duplex that has never formally received a cultural resource study before. There were 2 previous inventories of the building that recommended that it was eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. Those were done as part of the South Side Historic District inventory. In the end, the La Plaza Vieja area was cut out of the South Side District and it wasn't listed. So we have the inventory forms, but there is no formal designation, and there has not previously been cultural resource study. And at this time, the property owner is proposing to demolish the building and redevelop the property. As so recommended that a phase 2 cultural resource study is appropriate because of the previous eligibility recommendations, that it is eligible, and the proposed major impact. And so the Cornerstone Environmental produced the phase 2 cultural resource study and recommended, which the phase 2 is one of the recommended mitigation measures in our Heritage Preservation Code for a major impact such as demolition. They've also recommended additional mitigation, which would include doing additional archival photography once the building is vacant because there are currently tenants living there, so they weren't able to exhaustively document all of the interior and exterior features. They also recommend creation of a LiDAR scan of the exterior of the building, which is something you've seen Cornerstone do recently with a couple other phase 2 reports, and recommended creation of a historic West Tucson Avenue map framework to help better document the neighborhood and inform future cultural resource studies and research projects in the area. And so the commission options here to approve the recommended action here of the phase 2 resource study with the suggested conditions. The alternate actions, the commission could require additional research, documentation, or mitigation measures as conditions of approval, or the commission could continue to a date certain and require submittal of additional information, including additional research, documentation, or mitigation measures prior to acceptance. And with that, are there any questions for me before not that one, this one, before I invite Cornerstone up? Okay.
Hello, and thank you all for being here. I'm Sam Hemsley with Cornerstone Environmental Consulting, and I'm here today to present our findings for a phase 2 cultural research study on a residential property at 407 West Tucson Avenue. We have some preliminary information here shown on the slide. The study building is proposed for demolition prior to the redevelopment of the lot for single-family housing. Our study takes place in La Plaza Vieja at 407 West Tucson Avenue. It should be noted that the property also has a postal address of 405 West Tucson Avenue, as it's a 2-unit duplex. However, the 407 West Tucson Avenue address appears most often in our archival records, so we will be referring to the property using the 407 address. The study building is a residential building consisting of 2 separate residential units, 405 and 407 West Tucson Avenue. And the available records indicate that the building was constructed sometime between 1948 and 1950. The La Plaza Vieja period of significance we are using to develop our historic context spans between 1901 and 1954, and this is derived from a previous study of the neighborhood by SWCA. For our research message, we searched available historic records, including, but not limited to, county vault records, digital records from the Klein Library, historic Sanborn fire insurance maps, and newspaper archives. We visited the subject property to perform an on-site assessment and evaluation, and we also interviewed a lifelong local La Plaza Vieja resident, Commissioner Jesse Dominguez. So just some brief historic context. The history of La Plaza Vieja and the study building is intricately tied to Flagstaff lumber routes. particularly with the lumber mills which developed in town. The area in which La Plaza Vieja now resides was originally known as the Old Town Addition, and somewhat confusingly is also sometimes referred to as Flagstaff Town Site and the School Addition, which is not to be confused with the normal School Addition. Originally a commercial area associated with the railroad, the area began to transform into a residential neighborhood starting in 1894, when increased labor demands from the lumber industry resulted in an immigration boom, with Latino population from New Mexico and Mexico arriving to take advantage of the work opportunities present in the lumber industry. This immigration boom, in turn, led to a housing boom in the neighborhoods like La Plaza Vieja and Southside began to develop, with Latino populations forming the core of thriving, successful communities. In the 1950s, the closure of the Arizona Lumber and Timber Company mill, led to the relocation of several worker residences and office buildings into the La Plaza Vieja neighborhood to be reused as residential houses. This also marks the end of our period of significance as lumber operations began to wind down in Flagstaff, which led to a decrease in immigration and construction. The research into the property history was quite interesting. We found that the property first enters private hands after passing first from federal and county hands in 1912 to a Gus Sauer. Gustav Sauer was a German immigrant who immigrated into the US in 1891 and was working as a day laborer for the Santa Fe Railroad before moving to Flagstaff sometime prior to 1906. He was a homesteader with a patent issued to him for 140 acres in 1925 in west of Flagstaff, and later was an employee at the Saginaw and Manistee Lumber Company in town. Historic newspapers from this time period indicate that he and his wife, Mary Sauer, who was also a German immigrant, owned several rental properties around Flagstaff. Historic Sanborn maps from this time show no development on the studied lots up to 1948. And our first evidence of there being a construction or a resident or any sort of building on the property is in 1950 with the 1950s US Census, when the Carlos family shows up. Between this showing, the Carlos family showing up in the US Census, the lack of any structure or building on any of the prior Sanborn maps, no entry for the property address in any of the city directories or address books, we're pretty confident that the construction for the building happened between 1948 and 1950, though we don't have an exact date. The available records suggest that the property was developed and utilized as a rental property. Records from phone books, city directories, census data, and archival newspapers indicate that anybody associated with the property directly had a very short tenancy period. And outside of one instance in 1965, none of the owners of the property have a known direct presence on the property itself. The property would remain in the extended Sauer family until 2003, passing through the hands of each of Gustav and Mary's 5 daughters, which made tracking down the ownership very confusing, just as it would change names constantly and you would never be able to find the direct connection. But I think we got it. Members of the extended Sauer family, such as Raymond Ingeman, husband of Rose Sauer, one of Gustav's daughter, were often involved in the management and upkeep of the rental properties, paying neighbors or neighborhood kids to help maintain and repair the property throughout the years. When I was talking with Commissioner Dominguez about the property, he told me about an individual he remembered as Ray the Dutchman, who helped maintain the property. And as best as I can figure out, Raymond Ingham is that man. And you mentioned that they were from California. Raymond and Rose moved to Sacramento, and that's where they made their primary residence, but it seems like they did travel back and forth to check out the properties. For the residential history, as previously mentioned, our first known residents appear in the 1950s US Census, and these first residents were the Carlos families, which consisted of Arthur Carlos, who was a second-generation Mexican-American, Esther Carlos, who was also a second-generation Mexican-American, and their daughters, Lynd and Barbara Carlos, and son, Arthur Jr. Arthur Carlos was born in 1920 in Clarkdale, Arizona, where he worked as a delivery man. And by the 1950 census, we can tell from the census data that he was a lumber delivery man in Flagstaff. And we think based on his location in the time period, it was either the AL&T yard or the Southwest Lumber Mills yard. The family would not remain at the property for long. The 1950s census data is the only record we have of the family at the property. In 1959, we see some newspaper ads advertising Carlos Cleaners, which has Arthur and Esther Carlos's names. And in 1964, we also know that Arthur Carlos was a county employee employed by Coconino County underneath the road fund. So we think he was working on infrastructure and roads around town. There's a gap in our available records until 1965, and that is where Charles E. Shoemaker, who was a grandson of Gustav Sauer, is shown to reside in one of the units in one of the phone books, and he is noted to be an NAU student. There's not much to be said about Charles Shoemaker. We didn't find much information about him in newspapers or any archival records. That does kind of make sense for this time period if he was a student at NAU. And he drops off our available records in association with the property after 1965. At the same time, in the other unit, Wallace Honenwema, who was a Hopi U.S. Army veteran, he served as a tanker in World War II, is known to reside at the property. Originally from Second Mesa, he enlisted in, I don't have the date here, but I believe it was 1942, and it was discharged in 1945 at the rank of technician 5th grade, which is equivalent to a modern day corporal. He was married to Bertha Nicholas, and other than the note that they are associated with the property in 1965 and a additional period appearance in the 1970 city directory at a different address, this time at 515 West Tucson Avenue, there's not much information outside of Wallace's military record. We did find that at least starting in the 1970s, possibly prior, Wallace was carving and selling Kachina dolls. I found this out, the very tail end of our research, and it kind of sent me down the, you got to chase the threads out. That's how you find the interesting things. But Wallace was carving and selling Kachina dolls, and at least some of them were being sold through the M&A gift store. And I stumbled across a couple of his carvings, and with, it's very rare when we do history or archaeology or anything that people put their name on things. But there I saw at least 7 existing carvings that he had made and sold. And we reached out to the M&A for comment just to see if they had anything more in their collection. We haven't heard back, but we found that pretty interesting. After 1965, there's another gap in our records for the property, with the next known resident being S.M. Aker, which occurred in 1974. Unfortunately, the Aker last name is fairly common in the available records. When we did the record searches, we had a lot of individuals pop up and weren't able to quite figure out which individual SM is standing for. And unfortunately, due to privacy laws, pretty much all census records, I think past 1960, you can't review them. So we weren't able to review US census data for the residents at this time. Similarly, in 1976, Steve Daniels is also known to reside at the residence in city directory and city phone books. But Steve Daniels is a pretty common name, and we weren't able to track down. We found a lot of Steve Daniels, but I couldn't find anybody who I could confidently say was a resident at this house. Maybe when the census data opens up, and I believe it's going to open up in 2030, we can take a look and narrow it down, but right now it's a little too hard to figure out exactly which Steve Daniels they're talking about. 1976 is the end of our historic review period. So I'm going to shift now to talking about the architecture of the building. As Lauren mentioned before I came up here, there has been 2 previous inventories of the building, one in 1993 and the other in 2009. So the image on the left is the 1993 photo of the building, and the image on the right is the 2009 photo of the building. And I think it's worth mentioning that these are very preliminary inventories of these buildings. They were trying to do the entirety, or most of the entirety of South Side, and the information that they provide on these is very preliminary. Well, they discuss a little bit about the architecture and why they think it is eligible or why they don't think it's eligible, but these are not in-depth studies on the building. And we've got some modern photos of the buildings, and I do apologize for the living clutter. As Lauren mentioned, that most of the units were in use at the time. And we do plan and would like to go back and take photos once things are cleared out, just to better capture the building. But we have the front entrance, which is the north elevation. You can see entry to both of the units. You can see the patio, the roof. The windows, as far as we can tell, are pretty much all original windows with original glass. They've been repaired in some ways, but it was really nice to see that. Moving clockwise, we've got the west-facing elevation. You can see the side porch, which acts as a secondary entrance. And there's one on the west and east sides of the building, and they both lead into the respective kitchens. You have the south side. There's not much to say about it. There's no windows, doors. It doesn't look like there was any original entries or doorways or windows that got patched up. It's pretty featureless. The west side, and I do apologize that it's split into 3 images. There was quite the wall of fencing and vegetation behind me, and this was the best I could do to capture it at this instance. But it's a mirror of the western elevation, or sorry, the eastern elevation. This is the western elevation. You have the windows, you have the porch entryway into the residence, which leads directly into the kitchen. In the last photo on the bottom, you can note that it looks like some of the glass from one of the windows is gone. But architecturally, it's in the vernacular cottage style with a hipped roof, 2 separate residential units, and it's got 3 porches, a front porch, 2 side porches that act as secondary entrances. More than 50% of all the residences built in La Plaza Vieja between 1911 and 1930 have been evaluated as vernacular cottage style. So there's a lot of similar architectural buildings in the neighborhood. But this one also has some bungalow influences, which in some of the prior phase 1 and phase 2 presentations we've discussed, bungalow influences are fairly common in Flagstaff architecture. Vernacular cottage style is a residential folk architecture which uses locally available materials and simple functional designs to address local considerations. I've got some photos coming up where you'll see it better, but they do use some Mount Pipe basalt for foundation material, both for the house and for the porches. And the house is a simple, functional, working class home. It's elevated, which makes sense for the area because that neighborhood floods. There is a blocked off spring close to my house, and you pointed out the house where it's at. The roof has a pretty good slope on it, enough to shed rain and snow and not retain it and risk collapsing. So we think they were thinking ahead. So as mentioned, the windows and frames appear original with some repairs. As far as we could tell, all the exterior windows are original. Some of them are damaged, some of them are repaired. It doesn't look like any of them have been fully replaced. There's a mixture of original historic doors. And some of the doors are historic, but they're non-original. And what I mean by that is just based on how they fit into the frames, we think that they were repurposed from either somewhere else in the residence or from another historic building. They just don't quite fit. Modern doors are also present with modern fixtures. Door fixtures are a combination of original hardware and modern hardware. And there's modern hardware added on top of original hardware for security components. The two modern, you can see in this photo that the two doorways have modern screen doors in front of them. So that's an example of that. The north-facing porch has seen some modern repairs and improvements. Going back to that photo, you can tell just from the stairways and the railings, those are new, modern additions. It doesn't come out perfect in this photo, but it looks brand new. It's shiny and bright and well painted. So there's been some modern improvements. Roof and patio coverings have undergone modern repair, replacement, and renovations. We've talked to the homeowners, and they mentioned that the roof has been pretty comprehensively repaired between 2019 and 2020. Taking a look at some of the lumber and timber being used for porch and patio supports, it looks pretty new, it looks pretty modern. It's painted well, so it blends in with everything, but the materials themselves are modern. The asbestos tiling, as far as we can tell, is original to the house. It's painted over and some of them are cracked, but we haven't been able to, we don't see anything that would suggest that it's covering up the original exterior or it was a later addition. The photos from 1993 and from 2003 also have the asbestos tiling, and they also mention in the entries that it's sided with asbestos tiling. Interiorly, it's gone pretty significant remodeling, but the layout is still original. There's been new plumbing, new wiring, drywall replacement walls have been added. There's been new flooring materials. There's been installation of gas fireplaces in both units. The Western unit bathroom is entirely redone. I've got a kind of good photo about that. It's the best photo I could do without just giving you a photo of a toilet. There are original cabinets present in the Western unit, but the Eastern unit has modern cabinets. As previously mentioned, there's historic doors and hardware is present. Ceiling lamps are modern. I looked at the model code for a couple of them, and it was 2018 to 2020 production date. As mentioned, the north-facing porch has modern repairs and improvements. Same thing with the roof and patio coverings, and the asbestos tiling is original. Here's some photos of the interior. On the west, or the left side, we have the gas heaters that have been added. And you can see in the bottom of the image, the wood flooring that's been added and modern carpeting. In the center, this is the hallway that is present in the Western unit. And you can see pretty easily two different flooring materials. And just barely at the bottom of the image, it goes into wood flooring. Typically, when we see two different flooring materials in such a short area between the hallway and the bedroom, that typically means that it's been replaced or repaired or redone in stages. That doorway on the right leads into the bathroom, and you can see the bathroom. You can see that the sink, where the sink at and the cabinets at, that's modern. The tiling right below the light switch is modern. That's a more modern shower. But this is not, the original 1940s, 1950s fixtures in the restroom. So for our evaluation, and I do apologize, typically we do go over all of the criteria that we evaluate. But I know we're trying to keep our presentations to about 20 minutes. So in an effort to spare everybody that, I have what our recommendations on here. But as you know, we do a full breakdown of all of the NRHP and City of Flagstaff criteria in our report where we go through each criterion. So we found that the building is eligible under the City of Flagstaff criterion B for ethnic heritage and community planning and development. And we found that it is recommended eligible under City of Flagstaff criterion D for architecture. And going into this a little bit, really the core of the La Plaza Vieja neighborhood was that it was a working class, predominantly Latino neighborhood which grew and developed and became a thriving community as a result of the lumber industry in Flagstaff. And this house is built in the right time for the lumber industry to be relevant. The first known residence at the house was a second generation Mexican American who moved to Flagstaff and worked at the lumber industry, likely one of the lumber industries, one of the lumber industries that was close to the home. And it formed, the people, as far as we can tell, who lived in the house were working class individuals. Again, the residential history is it's both pretty spotty and people had short tenancy periods. But this house and the residents fit into the character of the neighborhood. I actually live down the street from this house. I drive by this house every day. And the neighborhood has a working class community feel, and the people who stayed at this house were working class individuals. And as far as we can tell, the property was built and planned to be a rental unit for working class individuals. And yeah, it fits into the character of the neighborhood. Architecturally, it conveys vernacular cottage style and incorporates local materials. Here's the malachite basalt that I mentioned. And original materials are present. Again, you can see in this photo some of the modern lumber that's been used to repair and maintain the house. But you do have original materials present with the windows, doors, some of the malachite basalt, the tiling. So for those reasons, we found it eligible under City of Flagstaff criterion D for architecture. For NRHP, the bars for these under NRHP or the bars for the similar criterion, they set them much higher. So criterion A under NRHP, which is similar to City of Flagstaff criterion B, that requires demonstrating a important significance to the overall themes. And what we mean by that is, if you're talking about a neighborhood that grows and develops due to the lumber industry, an important building or important contribution for that would be, well, if you had a lumber mill, that would be an excellent one. But as I previously mentioned, some of the AL&T lumber industry buildings got moved to the neighborhood and repurposed. That's kind of the level of significance that NRHP is asking for when you take a look at their guideline bulletins. Similarly, for architecture under NRHP, they're kind of looking for exemplary examples. They're looking for examples that are stylistically pure. So a really good example of vernacular cottage house without the bungalow stylistic influences. They're also looking for houses that do something new, maybe the first house of this architectural style in the area, or maybe a house that was the first of its kind developed with new technologies and techniques. And the available data we could have on this building, it didn't showcase any of the lines of evidence we would need to be able to recommend it eligible underneath these NRHP criterion. So for our mitigation, and Lauren also covered it a little bit, but we would like to do a lighter scan of the exterior of the residence prior to demolition. We'd like to do that after the tenants have moved out, once the exterior is clear. There's quite a bit of, people are living there. There's stuff in the yard. There's some storage sheds. We would like to wait until the tenants have moved out and that area is cleared out. We can do a nice clean scan of the exterior. That can be used to create a 3D model of the structure, and it kind of preserves its layout and its mass and how it looks in an interactive way. We would like to establish a framework for a West Tucson Avenue map, which displays historic buildings, preliminary information of historic residents, and the lot history. And this could be expanded on with future studies, with future results appended onto the map. And this is a very great and very easy and streamlined way to preserve and present the history of the street. And it makes it easier for future researchers, interested parties, long-term residents of Flagstaff to view the history of the street. There's a lot of historic residents, and there's a lot of historic families. There's a lot of historic homes on West Tucson Avenue, and this would be a great start to recording and documenting all of that. I would like to stress that I'm not proposing that I do a phase 1 or a phase 2 or a letter report effort on all the houses that are on West Tucson Avenue. That's a lot of time and that's a lot of money. But through the process of the research for this and through talking with local residents, we got a lot of information that's not easily accessible for a lot of people who are doing research or that's out there. We have the SWCA documentation for the neighborhood. We have the, I believe it was a phase 1 that Lynn Neal did on the property directly adjacent. We now have this. We now have this study, and all those could be very easily related to each other and put on a map. And City of Flagstaff has a GIS layer that shows you the construction date of all the buildings in Flagstaff. Granted, sometimes those dates are incorrect, but there's a lot of disparate, really important pieces of information that can get tied together, put into a really digestible, easy format. And, let's say 6 months from now, somebody else wants to do some work on their house and they get they need a study done. That study can get appended onto this, and they can use that study as a jumping off point for their own study. And it just grows. It forms a living document. So that is, I think, one of our strongest points of mitigation for this project. And then our last bit is the archiving and hosting of this report and associated materials for public access. We would also like to send all the associated materials and report to the neighborhood association, just so that they have a copy of it handy. And we think between all those, we have a very strong mitigation plan for the property. And yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant or the representative?
I'd just like to make a comment. You really did a nice job. That block that you're talking about is that 100-year-old block. And what I mean by that, everybody lived in that block, got to live 100 years. Mr. and Mrs. Baca, Mrs. and Mrs. Anaya, Mrs. Bustamante is still working on it. She's at 96. And so there's Mr. and Mrs. Hadigay. They also lived to 98.9. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. There was something going on Tucson Avenue that they got to live to 100 years old. So thanks for your research. And one thing that I've been trying to do a little research is that one of our city council members, Ellen Edgar's wife, lived in that house. And I'm trying to remember her name. I can't remember her name. Anyways, as little kids, hey, Cheryl, oh, there you go. Hey, Cheryl, how are you? And so we all went to school at Flag High. and South Beaver or Our Lady of Guadalupe School. And Our Lady of Guadalupe School was for all the mill worker kids that lived in the area. So your research was really, really good. And I know there's Ray the Dutchman, and we called him not the Dutchman, Ray el Doce is what we called him. And he would hire us kids to pull weeds on summertime and make an extra 50 cents or what have you. So there's a lot of history in that corner. So thanks for doing such a great job.
I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about the map framework, like just where it would live and how the public would interface with that. It's a really interesting idea.
No, excellent question. So when we send in the report and all the associated materials and we say that we like it archived and hosted, presumably the map framework would go along with that. The neighborhood association could also maintain a copy of that map. And the idea being, um, you know, no, I doubt that this could be mandated or enforced in any way, but the idea being when another project is done in that neighborhood, you know, one, they should be checking with the neighborhood association to figure out what materials and stuff is present, but also there's, you know, when we as a company do projects like these, we try to take a look at all the reports and projects that are done in the general area, in houses in the general area. It gives us a really good idea of the history and all that kind of stuff. So as part of that review process, this map, if it's in 3 different places, it should pop up. And at the end of the process, it's very easy for somebody to append their research results to the map, and then they can just send that back and be like, thanks for the map, here's an updated version of the map. So that is kind of how I envision that process going. Unfortunately, it does rely on people being willing to do that. I think that it's in everybody's best interest to do that, so I hope people do that, but I can also see a world where that's not the case, unfortunately. Mhm.
I want to thank you for your deep research. Appreciate it greatly. Forgive me, but I notice things. I drive people crazy, but I noticed the sentence it's incomplete. And it's, so it's missing part of what you wanted to say, which is on page 20 in the first paragraph, the last sentence. So it's, unless I read it wrong, it is incomplete.
Believe it or not, right when I hit print on this, I saw that exact same instance, and I'm just like, ooh, that's going to come up. But thank you very much.
Sure. So thank you for doing that and all this research. So we are being asked to approve the Phase 2 Cultural Resource Study. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Phase 2 Cultural Resource Study for the property at 407 West Tucson Avenue.
I second it.
I do have a request that we add on there that the map, I love the map, that be added to the cultural resource study. And when that's done.
Yes, yeah, that's
Yeah, and just for clarification, if you do want to include any of the 3 suggested
Oh, we
conditions,
haven't mentioned them.
yes.
Okay.
And you could amend the one with the map framework that it be included in the cultural resource study.
Okay, Commissioner Overman, would you like to rephrase your motion?
I make a motion to approve a Phase 2 Cultural Resource Study for the property at 407 West Tucson Avenue with the following conditions of completion of additional archival photography once the building is vacant, creation of a LiDAR scan of the exterior of the building, creation of a historic West Tucson Avenue map framework.
Any more discussion? No? Are we ready to vote? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion passes.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Okay, that completes the public participation part, the public hearing. So now we go to general business, item 8A, Historic County Jail presentation.
All right, and I'm gonna invite my friends from the county up. And here you are, Tom.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Hanachek. I'm the Director of Facilities Management for Coconino County. And I'm here to talk about a very old structure for us and just give the HPC a brief overview of kind of what our plan is in the next 6 months. I know Duffy has attended one of our first EPA grant meetings a couple years ago, so progress is advancing on this. So feel free to interrupt, ask questions at any point. I'll try and make this brief, but have enough information so you all understand what's happening here. Actually, I'll start here. This is a photo from just after the courthouse was built, approximately 1895. The structure on the right there, the smaller, the medium-sized building is actually the first structure that the county ever built in 1892, about a year after we were incorporated as an official government entity as Coconino County. That is the original footprint of the historic jail that you see there. And then the courthouse was built 2 to 3 years later, as you see right there. And then there were additions put on in the early 1900s and also in 1925, and what you see with the current state. So we have more photos coming. It is the 135th anniversary of Coconino County, so we are excited to be kicking off this project to kind of highlight some of the historic structures and the history of the county. So just a couple things we're going to cover today. I want to step back and just spend a couple minutes to talk about our facilities master plan. And we believe that that's important because it does give us direction on what's going to happen on the site adjacent to the courthouse complex and also adjacent to the historic jail. We're going to talk just briefly about history of the site, some recent work specific to EPA grants, some remediation, abatement work that's going on right now. And then we'll just kind of give you a view of what the county's vision is for the intermediate vision and then the long-term vision of that site. So real quick, for about 2 years, from 2023 to 2025, we worked with a consultant to do a facilities master plan. And that was approved by the board in February of 2025, so about a year and a half ago. And as Coconino County has facilities all over the county, a large portion of the facility master plan focused on the downtown area where we have a large presence. About a third of our workforce works out of these buildings that you see right in the downtown corridor in the Cherry, WC Riles, and San Francisco Street there. What this image is representing is what the master plan is indicated as what structures we should build and what structures we should alter down there. And the one that I want to highlight here is the green one. Can you all see this cursor? Okay, I didn't know if I could use a virtual laser pointer. This structure right here is the footprint of what we're calling the old jail. And then this building right here is actually the historic jail. So when you look back at that photo, it's that small little portion right there. The historic courthouse is this southern portion of this gray blob. And then there were additions to the courthouse in the 60s, 70s, and a large addition in 2000. This green structure right here is actually slated to be a new courthouse build. So that would be approximately 3.5 stories, maybe 4 stories tall. And that is in the footprint of the old jail. So the structure that was built in the 60s and 70s. This structure right here is the administrative center, which is currently about a 30,000 square foot building that eventually will be a new parking garage. Right here is our 110 East Cherry building, and this is a small addition to it for new Board of Supervisors chambers and a larger lobby. And so largely we reduce our footprint in downtown to these 4 major structures. And there's a lot more detail to the plan. If you're interested, we do have it on our website, and feel free to check out the 300 pages of that.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
A couple of questions.
Yep.
So the administration building is going to become a parking garage,
Mhm.
but you have a new building out on Route 66, right? A new,
That is City of Flagstaff.
that's city
Public Works,
port.
yeah,
Okay, so you're going to keep the supervisors downtown
correct.
and you're going to build a new county courthouse. I mean,
Correct.
addition in that green on the left side.
Oh, you're referring to the federal courthouse. That new that one that's
Out
being
on
built currently?
66.
That's the federal courthouse, yeah,
So that's leaving the AWD building?
correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then on here you have the red line proposed street closure. Is that
Mhm.
permanent or is that just for construction?
That's proposed, so it's still, yeah, we haven't really vetted it. It's more, this is a strategic master plan, so the concept would be create a campus feel downtown, and mitigating human and vehicle traffic is something that would probably would be beneficial for us. So, but all of this is not this is a plan. So, this of course will go through a lot of vetting before any major construction happens.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I covered some of the history right now.
Excuse me, Tom.
yes.
I think we have another question. Thank you.
This is just curiosity.
Yeah.
For the proposed parking garage, would that only be available to county staff or is it available to all the public for use?
A great question, and we get that pretty much every time we talk about a parking garage. The intent is it's approximately 600 vehicles, so we have just shy of 400 county employees. We have a fair amount of visitors that seek county service, and then for large jury calls, it's approximately 200. So for during business operations, we anticipate this serving county functions only, but after hours and weekends, the thought is to partner with Park Flag to open it up for visitors or local residents, depending on how that works. There's a lot of thoughts on it, so yeah. We're willing to partner with the city. Obviously, the concept of generating revenue is something that's interesting because parking garages are not cheap. The current rate is about $50,000 a parking spot. So thanks for the question. I covered some of this history already. These are some cool photos here. This one in the top right is pretty early on. This is the late 1890s right here. So you could see the original historic structures that were built in the 1890s there. This picture in the middle here, this was after 1925. I don't know the exact date on it, but what's of note here is you could see there is an expansion of the first floor of the jail that came off the west side. And then in 1925, there was an entire second story put on there. And then the picture in the lower right-hand corner here is existing conditions. Largely, the structure, the entire structure, so the historic jail and the old jail has remained largely vacant over the last 26 years. And that is because jail operations relocated to Sawmill in 2000 with a joint venture with the city PD and sheriff's office. So we have the detention center over there, and then we have the law enforcement facility. So we've used it. Our IT department was located in here, but largely it's been file and furniture storage. So here is a brief overview of kind of existing conditions and then more of an aerial of the portions that will be demolished in this coming year and the portions to remain. And of note, this is the roof line of the historic jail right here, both stories of it. So that structure will remain. The remainder of this right here, you see in the red outline, a lot of those additions were put on since 1925. So we have some from the 40s, but the majority of them are from the 60s and 70s. And that is that large orange wall that you see going up W.C. Riles. And most people don't even see it anymore because they just would rather look at other things. So we've done a lot of work over the years in partnership with ADQ, with EPA funding to do phase 1, phase 2. We've done environmental assessments. We've done some mitigation work. There's some underground storage containers, some elevator shaft, all the normal stuff that we see with buildings that were built in the middle of the 20th century. So we're dealing with a lot of that right now. This is a proposed interim site plan. So the intent, we have the funding for, the intent right now is to demolish the non-historic portions of the building. So everything built after 1925. So the sandstone structure that you saw in the previous photos will remain. And then we do have an interim concept because currently we do not have a funding source identified for the courthouse, for the 95,000 square foot courthouse build. So we're going to put it in an interim condition. You can see a small parking lot right here. This drive right here is for court operations, specifically for prisoner transport that comes in the side of the building. So create an exterior sally port type situation right there. This isn't 100% set yet. This is a concept design from our engineers. So we just did interviews for a contractor today, so we should have more details on the demolition component here in the coming months. Here's a rendering of what it could look like in the interim. So what you see here is the historic jail, both stories. The historic courthouse in the back here, and then this portion is there's a 70s and 80s edition that looks very 70s and 80s when you look at it right here. So we intend to rehab the site with native vegetation. It's got a pretty good slope on it, so we don't anticipate doing any large turf grass or any kind of eventing area. So basically just some wildflowers and grasses, make it look like our forest out here, and make it pleasing and stable for the interim until we build a new courthouse there. This is just an aerial view of kind of that last, I take that back. So this is our future vision here, and this is an aerial view of it. Once again, I'll point out the historic courthouse, the historic jail right here, and the courthouse complex right here. So what we proposed, we're referring to it as a justice hub rather than a courthouse. There'll be other programs and services that are provided out of there. So when you hear new courthouse, justice hub, we're using those terms interchangeably. So it's more of a comprehensive approach to criminal justice. Here's a potential rendering of what it could look like. We developed this. We did a EPA Brownfield conference last year. We competed with some folks from California, and we went out to LA so we had a rendering done to show what the site could potentially look like. Again, this is just a rendering. We haven't gone into design for this at all. But the historic jail remains here, forefront. The historic courthouse is over here in the same location, and then we have the brand new building that in theory would have a nod to architectural details of the past and also looking towards the future.
May I ask a couple questions?
Yes.
There were, in the original historic photograph that you provided, there were two small historic buildings.
Mhm.
This way back.
Yeah.
This is the one on the right, correct?
The jail is this one, yeah.
What
This
was-
structure at some point, we may find it when we demolish the 70s portion of the jail or a foundation. This was kind of an outbuilding that was used for support for kitchen materials and
Oh,
stuff like that.
okay.
So just because I'm on this photo also, when the county was first, up until the 1920s, all county operations ran out of the courthouse. So we had the treasurer, the recorder, the county attorney's office, the courts, they were all in that building in the jail. So we've grown substantially in the last 135 years.
And this is before the clock was installed.
It is before the clock, yeah.
Mhm.
I always think of Back to the Future, that clock up there. So I don't even know what year the clock was installed, actually. Does anybody know? Okay. Lauren, do you know? Okay. We'll get back to you on that.
Mr. Rivera used to maintain the clock. Joe Rivera, he lived on West Street, so he was a county employee that volunteered his time to maintain that old clock.
Oh,
And
really?
it finally died, and then
Okay.
that's when the new one put in.
Huh.
And his sons became attorneys. I wonder why.
Interesting. We had to do some repairs to it. Somebody broke in actually through the clock itself. And it took us months to find somebody that could actually work on those. So I think they came out of the Midwest or somewhere.
So Tom, my second question is about this concept that you have for this new building. Is that a flat roof?
Again, this is an artist rendering.
Yeah,
It's
but-
probably slightly pitched.
I hope so.
Yeah, for
Okay.
drainage and it'll definitely have snow load on it. But that's a good question because we never caught that. Sometimes renderings, they represent an idea, but it may not be the best idea.
Yeah, I've seen
So,
that on
yeah.
some of the new schools. It's like,
Yeah.
really, a flat roof here?
There's a lot of architects and designers come out of the valley in areas that there are not snow. So usually those of us that are responsible for managing the facilities will make those corrections. I think another important point is right now we do not have an identified use for the historic jail portion. It's 2 stories. It's about 3,000 square feet. The ceilings are really low in it, and there's not a ton of windows in it. But so more to come on that. We don't really have the master plan doesn't identify a specific use for it. So hopefully it'll turn into something nice for the community or for this site specifically. And there's an old postcard photo here. The courthouse has gone through a bunch of different changes over the years. For those of you who have been around for a while, there was an addition put on in the 60s that kind of looks like those old Vegas hotels with a arched driveway that came up to it, and then verandas and porticos, whatever we want to call those architectural features. And that large structure was actually torn down in the late 90s, early 2000s before that brick addition to the courthouse was put on. So yeah, just a real quick at a snapshot on the schedule moving forward. So like I said, we interviewed contractors today for the demolition. So we're hoping that either late 2026 into 2027, we're going to actually be doing the majority of the demolition and the rehab of the site. We're currently doing hazardous material abatement through an EPA grant that we received in 23. And then the final thing, which is probably of interest of this commission, is that we've been working with Lauren to start setting the stage to list both the historic jail and the historic courthouse on the National Register of Historic Places, which surprisingly it is not. So, and Lauren's been great to work with on that. So questions? Do I have any typos? Yeah.
You saw it.
Which one?
Registrar, the registrar instead of register.
Oh,
Sorry, it's really an.
no, you're good. Usually we do a pretty good job. I'll make sure I write that down.
Thank you, Tom, for keeping your word to me, but never not tearing down the jail. I've been bugging him for years.
Yes, you're welcome. Good.
Being relatively new to the commission, I'm just curious, like, so this sounds like this has all been in plans for years and this is just like checking in with the commission. Is that correct?
Yes, and really, we don't have a lot of purview over the county and their projects and what they do. So it is mostly just an FYI, and raising awareness for their project and that they're preserving the jail. So yeah, it won't be something that you guys will see as a formal approval.
Thank you for that. And also a very, very interesting project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. And we, just on another note, we will be having official public meetings before the demolition starts, which will be just a more robust version of this presentation that kind of gets into a little bit more of the vision. Because that's ideally that's our goal, is to get to that new justice hub concept.
Anyone else? Anything else? Thank you. That takes us to the 8B Historic Signs and Facades Grant Tracking for August.
Yes. So this month I did perform the final grant inspection and the reimbursement payment for the 910 North LaRue grant project. That was the only outstanding one that we had for this fiscal year. And so the photos were included in the packet. So this was awarded a few months ago at the end of last fiscal year. So the work has been complete. All of the reimbursement has been filed, and it was a level 1 grant, but it ended up, which goes up to $10,000, being quite a bit less than that. So I reflected the exact dollar amount in the spreadsheet, so we do have a little bit more to award. So if we, get to the end of the fiscal year, or even, midway, someone has another project that is under the 10,000, we could maybe do 2 level 1s for 10,000. So that is updated on the spreadsheet. And then, yeah, so completed project. And then, of course, next month, I will update the spreadsheet to include the grant awarded tonight, but we still have quite a bit of money left. Any questions on that? Okay.
Next item, you want me to introduce that? Okay, C, Commission Outreach and Education Program Discussion.
And I know we had tabled the last meeting that there was a request for Commissioner Dale to be present. I know now we have quite a few commissioners that we're missing tonight, so I don't know if you want to move forward with the discussion or wait for another meeting with more commissioners present. One thing that I would like to just propose, maybe in the interim, is one of the ideas we had talked about is scheduling an annual retreat to talk over some things in more detail. And so as we've had to keep punting this, I thought maybe, at least we'd be a good time to talk about that. We also, we generally have lighter agendas in the winter, sometimes no submittals at all because it's not construction season, and December and January. So I thought a retreat in one of those months, instead of the regular meeting, could be beneficial. We also, usually do some kind of a holiday gathering in December. So, maybe that could be combined with the retreat. We do, a retreat and then, a luncheon or something as part of the retreat in December. So just throwing that suggestion out there. Of course, we're going to need everyone's availability, so more than just the 4 of you here this evening, but I did want to mention that as something to be working forward to, and if the commission's still interested in doing a longer retreat meeting, and maybe think about, what availability for that. Most of the other commission retreats that I've seen, it'll be, kind of a half day or full day, at the Aquaplex or NACET, one of the Moonshot, one of the meeting rooms here.
I mean, I support the idea of a retreat of some type, because I do think this could benefit from some more candid discussion that's not time bound. It would still be time bound, but not so tightly time bound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it would allow, just some time to review ideas, prioritize them, planning throughout the year.
If we were to do a commission retreat, which I currently at the moment do support the idea of, is that going to be like subject to open meeting laws?
Yes, it would still be, an open meeting, advertised, agenda, all of the same practices that we usually do. And usually we would still, if we did get any public hearing items that month, we would still review all of those as part of the meeting.
So if we do a retreat, could we have the SHPO CLG representative do some education for us?
Yeah, we could.
It's always been useful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always support more education. Can't,
Mm-hmm.
It's good to learn. In terms of education outreach, we're going to test the waters. So Treasurer Flagstaff and NAPS, Northern Arizona Pioneers Historical Society, are sponsoring a candidate forum that is part educational and part candidate forum, and the topic is preservation with purpose. So historic preservation, we're going to do education and offer that if people want more, will help organize it. So just to put that out there and test the waters. We've heard from 3 candidates and we're hoping to hear from the rest, but we're going to, start doing it. Oh, and I'll mention it's on September 3rd at 5:30 at 319 South San Francisco, the oldest church in Flagstaff, which says LCM Canterbury on it, but it was originally downtown. It was moved to South San Francisco. So public event.
And would we like to continue having this item on the next agenda?
Yeah, maybe when we have everyone here, we can get somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to
If I may,
Oh,
just
please.
maybe we expand the topic to be like retreat options, so it can help people just think about it in that line.
Yeah. Great suggestion.
Anyone else? No? Okay. So now we're going on to item 9, reports. So that's you, Lauren, all your approvals. You did a lot.
Yes. So yeah, there are 5 approvals here. The first 2 letter report, cultural resource studies. This Rain Valley one is a bit of an interesting one. It's out by Picture Canyon. So there was an archaeological study done due to sensitivity in the area in which nothing was located. But it's an interesting project. There is one historic age house that they're leaving in place. There is one historic age house. And the first one, the oldest one, is not part of the project. It's just staying where it is. But the second historic age house that is not as old, they were proposing to move to a different part of the property. And that was evaluated in the letter report and was determined not to be significant. It, interestingly, already been moved out there from somewhere else in town. And then they're also building a new house on the property. So all kinds of things going on. That's that one, but because it was determined not to be significant and was unlikely to be significant, it met the letter report criteria. The next one down, this is a historic age ADU right up the street from the carriage house we looked at earlier that's proposed for demolition. Is not the same situation. It is not the rear property did not date to the grand old age of the front property at 507 North LaRue. That was also determined not to be significant and is in pretty poor condition and in addition to lacking significance and integrity, and is proposed for demolition. And let's see, so the next one down, this was a sign permit in the downtown overlay for a new building going in at one of the, for those of you who came on the tour that we did several months ago of the Babbitt building downtown. This is where the sweet shop was, and there is a new scoops and sweets build, I believe something to that effect going in. Scoops and sweets, yes. And so yeah, met the downtown sign guidelines. The next one is re-roofing of the building at a partial re-roofing of the building at 123 North San Francisco, which is built in 1975, but it is within the overlay, so it still has to come in for it's not part of the Railroad Addition Historic District as a contributor, but still needs to come in for a certificate. And the last one is repainting at also in the downtown overlay at 101 North LaRue, and painting of a commercial building downtown does require a minor improvement permit, or in this case, it was in addition to the larger building permit for the remodel that's been going on. And there was the rest of the remodel and the building permit were approved by HBC years ago, but this, they added painting to the scope of work, and the downtown design guidelines actually do have some very minor things about paint in them, which is basically that it should be earth tones and that accent colors can be more lively, but it was determined to meet certificate of no effect criteria. So any questions about any of those? Right. And
On to item 10, informational items to and from commission members and staff. Do you want to start, Lauren? Do you have anything?
I do. So just a couple notes from the city clerk's office. We do have 2 commission appointments that are ending at the end of this year. And so one is Commissioner Dales. Her term is up and she has served the maximum number of terms that she can. So she is not eligible to reapply or be reappointed. So we will have at least one vacancy that needs to be filled. And the clerk's office is currently soliciting applications because, as you all know from the past, sometimes it takes a while to generate applications. So they have started advertising, and we do need that. And because we do have, I believe that Commissioner Dale is a professional seat, but because we have enough professionals on the commission, I think we could fill it with professional at large or property owner because we would still meet the ratio. And Commissioner Dominguez, your seat is also up at the end of the year. But you are eligible to reapply. So if you're interested, you can put in another application. And right now, the clerk's office has scheduled both of those appointments for the December 1st city council meeting. So hoping to get applications in ahead of time. The council prefers to have multiple applications to consider at once. So any questions about that?
Just out of curiosity, how many terms can one serve?
I believe it's 3 consecutive terms. So she's at the limit. And I don't know if you can take a break and come back, but I believe it's 3 consecutive. And one note on going back to CLG training, Ariana Urban, the CLG coordinator from the State Historic Preservation Office, is planning a CLG training in Flagstaff on Friday, November 6th in the morning. It will be right here in City Hall Council Chambers. I don't know the exact time, but we will share all of that with you once it's available. The state planning conference is taking place at the High Country Conference Center in Flagstaff the days prior on Wednesday the 4th and Thursday the 5th. And so there will be a lot of folks in town for that. And so Ariana is doing kind of a affiliated post-conference CLG training on that Friday. So hopefully, other folks from other cities who are in town can attend, as well as all of you are invited, and there will be no cost for attending that. So I don't know the exact time, but I do know the plan is that it will be in the morning, and we will share details as it's available. If you want to save the date for Friday, November 6th. We also several months ago, we talked about there's a wire scam going around with our applications, and someone had actually used Chair Westheimer's contact info before. All of our public hearing applicants this month did receive another scam email. This time it came from our planning director. Well, it didn't come from her. It came with her name from a fake email address, but it's a wire scam saying that you need to pay a very large fee through a wire transfer. So just getting the word out, it's still a scam. Our front counter notifies all applicants when they come in that there is this scam going around, but it hadn't happened to us in a few months, and then everybody got it this month. So just letting everybody know about that. And then I don't have a date yet, but another FYI to put out there. Picture Canyon, which is a city property and also has a landmark overlay on it. There are some proposed trail, parking lot, other improvements that the open space staff is considering at Picture Canyon, and they will need to come in for a certificate. And I have been talking with them about some of their plans. Right now they're in, formulating their plans and looking at going after potential grant money to fund them. But they have done they've taken SHPO out there to kind of walk it. They've had some cultural resource firms out there, but we talked about potentially taking the commission out for a site visit, which would be a lot more fun and easier to really understand what they're talking about than if they came in and did a PowerPoint. Which they may still do. But so just FYI, maybe if there is a different month, like if we don't get any items for October or something, or that's the only thing, maybe we could do a site visit, or maybe we could schedule something outside. But so just wanted to get that on everybody's radar. And that's it for me.
Anyone have any questions for Lauren? No? Okay. Any of us have anything to bring up? Well, you know me, I do. So, thank you for explaining why F Cube said there was an opening on HPC. They said that in their email blast or whatever it is.
Yeah, the clerk's office has done a couple, I think they're advertising every board and commission that has a vacancy for the rest of the year right now. So I've seen quite a few go out.
Yeah, Michelle put out, there were a few, yeah. Just for people's information, Northern Arizona Pioneers Historical Society in 1985 gave our collections for Flagstaff history to Arizona Historical Society. They have been at Klein since 1985. They may have left town already. So research is really hampered. They've been taken to Tucson, and we were given no warning about this really. But if you need to do any research and you wanted to use the the AHS collections, which actually originated with Northern Arizona Pioneers Historical Society, they're gone. We hope they come back, but there are no guarantees. Klein's going through a major change, so it's really hard. Also, the Naps Picnic, which has been going on since 1905, is Labor Day. It's always on Labor Day, and everybody's welcome to be a member and to come to the picnic. It's a really great event. Have you ever come, Jesse? Yeah, it's really cool. So that's on Labor Day at 11:30, I think. Let's see. So then I have some pictures, Lauren. I'm just going to have to bring this up because it's part of the inconsistent that Mr. Peterson brought up. Tom Shealy's house on West Grand Canyon was demolished and it never came before HPC. And you and I talked about it a little bit, and I don't mean to blindside you, but Mr. Peterson, who I personally know, is frustrated by the process, and meanwhile, that he's trying to do it right and follow the rules, but it's costing him a lot of money, and it's that he doesn't necessarily want to spend on it. Meanwhile, this house is being torn down, never came before HPC. So is there something we can do about the process so that we're not penalizing our local people?
And as we discussed, the one on Grand Canyon, because of all of the previous modifications and additions to the building, did meet an exemption from study because due to the decrease in integrity, it would not have met the eligibility, criteria. So it did meet a code exemption for that, which is why it didn't come to HBC. And of course, Mr. Peterson's comment, we cannot really discuss because it was not an agenda item. But I will say that he could move forward with HPC's approval if he wanted to. He wants to change the scope of work of his project and build a different house. That is why there is an additional requirement. He does not want to build what HPC already approved. He wants to build a completely different house. And he wants to demolish more of the building than what HPC previously approved, which is why it does not meet the previous condition of approval and he would have to come back.
Can he use the existing cultural resource study? Really, would he need to do another one? That cost him $5,000, over $5,000.
Well, he wants to demolish everything. What you approved before was that he was going to take the roof off and some of the walls and go up. But now he's going to completely destroy the entire property from what he showed me. He is keeping only the front porch. Everything else would be demolished. It will not, what was approved before, the commission felt what he was doing was mitigation because he was going to be restoring the siding. He was going to be doing some other things to mitigate the major impact. And now it would be a complete major impact, no mitigation, which is why I suggested he could come to HPC and ask for if there was additional mitigation you would accept besides the phase 2. But now the previous mitigation that was approved no longer applies. So he does already have the phase 1. He does already have all of the as-builts. And so it would be a pretty light phase 2 because all the phase 1 work is done. And again, he has the as-built, so it's really just the archival level photography. And that is what I suggested he bring to HPC as a full phase 2 packet for mitigation for demolishing his house. which again was already determined to be eligible.
Could he bring the plans to us? I mean, I am not talking about him in particular. I just hear about it. And I think that I've seen online, people are very frustrated with this process and feel like it's too expensive to keep the houses. And so it's pushing out the locals and it's making it too expensive for locals to do the work. So it's backfiring on the commission and our purpose. And that's what I'm wondering if somehow we can reassess, maybe we could do this at the retreat and see how we can make the process doesn't feel like they're being punished for having an older house because we'll lose them all.
Well,
It's
and,
not our
and in this case,
intent.
like, he wants to demolish the house. He wants to do a major impact. So unfortunately, without changing the code to not require mitigation, like, something is going to have to happen. I did suggest he could come to HBC first. We've had this discussion probably 6 months now. He could have come to HBC and asked specifically what you would require before paying anyone to do it, and he has declined to do so. So I do understand it's kind of two things. Like, I understand you want to incentivize preservation so someone doesn't buy a historic house and decide to demolish it, to build a bigger house. I don't think that's the case here. But, and I don't know that changing the code to make it easier or cheaper for someone, I think in this case, it would still incentivize the demolition. But if there are other things, we can discuss to, like, the grant program, other things that people could utilize to restore their house instead of demolishing it, or offset those costs of, like, oh, well, this house is in disrepair and it's too expensive to keep, so I would like to demolish it. Well, maybe the grant program, could offset those costs to help you keep it.
It sounds like it all comes down to the education and community outreach piece that you've been asking us to talk about. And so it really seems like I can empathize with hearing frustrations and then seeing how the system can seem to reward new buildings and not, supporting the old buildings being maintained. It's a really tough position.
Yeah, and this applicant had asked, like, oh, could I use the grant program to pay for my studies? But that's not the point of the grant program, because the grant would then be paying for you to help you destroy and have a major impact on a historic building. Those are the sorts of things that applicant had asked if we could change to benefit property owners.
Well, when we look at this Grand Canyon house, the addition of the garages could be taken off. Like, that was no big deal. Now everything's gone but 2 walls. Like, everything is gone. So had that person come to the commission first before being allowed to demolish to this degree, maybe we could have worked with that person with the grant program to say, those garages, obviously this owner took them off. If you're going to take those off anyway, could we see if we could save more of the house? Because that context, that street is really great. And it has mostly historic houses. There's one with the giant modern things behind it. But it just seems like if we can figure out ways, whereas up on East Birch, there's an apartment building on one side and a McMansion on the other side of him. So he's in a difficult place. So it's like, if there's a context that has already been diminished, do we need to address how we deal with that? That's what I'm bringing up. I mean, we need to just be realistic, and otherwise all we're going to have are short-term rentals in our historic neighborhoods because they can make the money. But to live there, which is what we really want, is to keep our residents in our houses. I just think we need to look at the process and see how we can encourage.
I don't think there is a way you could require everyone with a house over 50 years old to come to the commission. There's no requirement that they would have to come to you before they have a project, in that case. Like what you suggested, that this person, before they got a demolition permit, Even though their house met the exemption criteria in the code that they would have to come to the commission, I don't think there is a way to force that in the process. I think it goes back to the education and outreach and incentives.
Well, the garages were, I mean, the principle of reversibility, like it used at Guadalupe, those garages could be removed. That was totally reversible and would return that house. The integrity, the garages, who knows where this person's going to put them now. So I just think if we can work on it and make it better and not have people feel like they're being punished. And I think that's what's happening. And it's not working to this commission's purpose.
Commissioner Dominguez.
I'm going backwards. 407 Tucson.
Mhm.
You know what really bothered me about that was the windows. Are they, I was like, can we salvage just the windows? They're probably full of lead. But somebody took their time to preserve them. And
Yes.
so, I mean, if there was a way to be able to save the windows, if nothing else, just the windows.
I do know on a personal note, someone who lives across the street is in contact with the property owner to salvage some of the materials for their house that they are working on across the street. So I do
Because
think
they
some
don't
of
make
that will
them, they don't
happen.
make them anymore.
Yeah.
Actually, they look older than houses built at the end of the 40s, which is what I have. Those are, and that person across the street, their old metal casement windows went in at the end of the 40s. Those windows look like they could have been reused if that house was really, the duplex was really built at the end of the 40s. So maybe we could have made that part of our mitigation was to salvage materials. Can we do that?
If they're open to that, I will say, I mean, it's hard to enforce, as we learned with the Babbitt House. It's hard because it's not just, it depends on so many factors, right? People have to be willing to take them, which they aren't always. So, but that is something you could ask.
I just want us to do better than we're doing right now. We've lost so many buildings in the past 3 years, whatever, and some are really significant. And it's just, we're not meeting our goals here, in my opinion. On some cases we are, but we've lost some really important buildings in history because having a report is not the same thing. And Jesse won't be here forever, unfortunately.
The flagpole's still there.
It is.
I keep driving by once a week, maybe twice a week. It's still there.
That's what I wanted to bring up, that people are frustrated, and I just feel like we need to do a better job here on the commission, in the city, whatever, to meet our purpose.
You know, I'm going back to 407. That was Flagstaff's affordable housing in 1930s and 40s. And that's why, he mentioned, what is it, bungalow? It was for the workers. And I mean, it was cheap rent. The people that grew up there and became famous or infamous, I don't know which one. But anyways, they had a place to live, which I think we don't have nowadays.
Anyone else have anything to bring up? Okay, then maybe we are adjourning. Is that clock right yet? It says 5:19.
It's 6.
I mean, no, it's not even close. Yeah, 6:12. We are closing the meeting. We're adjourning at 6:12. Thank you, everyone.